Personally, I am the perfect fan. I have never done anything wrong. I've never been over the top. I've never been crazy. I've never crossed any boundaries. I'm respectful, and I definitely know the limits, and I am the ideal fan. Okay, so Kano is currently on fire right now, so I can't see literally a foot outside of my apartment, so I have not touched grass in like 24 hours. That's why I said what I said in the beginning, so I apologize. Anyway. Yeah, it's me, the bitch, who is a big-ass fangirl who is critiquing other fandoms. What else is new? That's what my whole channel has now become. But at least I'm self-aware. Today, I wanted to talk about fandoms, obviously, and when they go too far, how they're mainly rooted in misogyny. Oh no, Nicole's talking about feminism again on our channel. Uh-oh. And how fandoms can definitely be beneficial, but also extremely harmful to the mental health of not only the fans, but to the artists. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just a professional. So today I want to give a big thank you to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. In case I ever run into one of my favorite celebrities and I want to fangirl the heck out, I want to smell good, okay? I usually gravitate towards musky, vanilla, citrusy scents. I love patchouli for some reason. Scents are such a personal thing to me, so I have like very specific scents for certain years of my life, and if I suddenly want to get transported to 2017, I like having the option to do so, which is why I love Scentbird. Scentbird lets you choose a new designer fragrance to try every month for just $17. Every month you get to pick out what you receive, so there's literally no surprises. They have perfumes and colognes and a lot of unisex options. And with each fragrance, you get a 30-day supply, so you can try out fragrances before committing to a full-size bottle. And that can cost like over $150, sometimes like even between $300 and $500. They get very pricey. Scentbird carries brands like Prada, Gucci, Versace, as well as indie labels like Skylar, Heretic, and Confessions of a Rebel. You can use my coupon code Rafiee55 to get, can you believe it, 55% off your first month at Scentbird. That makes it just a little over $7 for your first month. It's available in the USA and Canada. I personally have been loving Life by Kenzie. Top notes are jasmine, citrus, and musk, so right up my alley. My favorite one is Commodity Gold. I just recently traveled to Boston and I didn't want to take a full-size perfume, and I could just take this little guy, considering that I literally only had space and a carry-on. Smells like vanilla, amber, and sandalwood, meaning that I smell good as hell. I've gotten the most compliments whenever I wear this. Anyway, thank you so much, Scentbird, for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out the links below so that you can get some Scentbird for yourself. Thank you, Scentbird. I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with fandoms, which I've definitely showcased on this channel quite a bit, okay? One that might shock you all, and many of you might not even know this person because I know a lot of you guys have good taste. I was obsessed with FouseyTube. Deeply, deeply obsessed with FouseyTube. Not like his current self whatsoever.
I felt worthless. I felt ugly. I felt gay. I felt that like that just based on what they told me.
It was when he was making a lot of Middle Eastern content on YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, I'm Middle Eastern. We'll get into a little bit of that later, but that is one of the most severe fandoms that I've ever been a part of. I had to text some of my friends and be like, what have I been obsessed with in the past? I used to be very obsessed with Zayn and Heath from the Vlog Squad. I don't want to talk about it. Avanjogia, specifically when he was on the show Twisted, that lasted for 1 season. Samira Wiley, aka Poussey from Orange is the New Black. Macklemore, The Strokes, what? The Garden, iCarly, and many different YouTubers throughout the years, which is what led me to starting my own channel. I'm saying this all because one of the first steps into getting people indoctrinated into whatever you're about to say is to show some type of vulnerability. I want us to all recognize that fandoms are good, okay? Like psychologists say, you are likely more happier if you are a part of some sort of fandom. Fandoms are good because they bring togetherness. They bring a sense of unity, good for artists, keeps music and art alive, and it's fucking fun. When I was an RA in college, that was like one of the biggest things that we had to make sure happened on our floor, was like bringing together a sense of community and oneness. And like, you can try everything for college students. Like you can do, a potluck, and you can give out free succulents and free condoms and free cupcakes and give them little gifts on their birthday. It's not gonna make them feel together or oneness or unity, okay? You know what's the one thing that brought them all together? It's when the entirety of Temple University had the mumps. That is the one time we have felt a sense of togetherness and community. It's just when we were scared shitless of the mumps. Anyway, sense of community is good. That's why a lot of people join cults. That's a conversation for another day though. Clearly, I'm very interested in celebrity culture, fan culture, media. I am a fan of fandoms. Like, I'm literally a fan of the internet's professional fangirl, which is Brittany Broski. I'm a fan of hers. And I really admire how she has turned her fangirlism into a whole ass career, and she is kicking ass doing it. If there's one thing I am always in life, it is not a hater, but it is a fan. Unless it's being a Colleen Hoover hater. Then I am always a hater. Anyway, go watch my last video. As an only child, I resorted into being a fan and being in many different fandoms because it was the one place that I could obsess and talk about my interests without everyone being like, Nicole, what the fuck? There's only so much that your like poor immigrant mother can listen to after working like a 10-hour shift before she's like, Nicole, I literally don't care about Macklemore. You need to stop. What do Britney Spears, the New York Yankees, and Apple all have in common? They all have some of the world's largest and most dedicated fan bases. Hollywood Insider. The difference between being a cult fan of someone like Britney Spears and a cult fan of Apple is that Britney Spears is a real person with real feelings and has a right to privacy, even if she may be operating like a business, whether that is her choice or not. And Apple is a massive corporation, and you camping out for the newest iPhone drop or criticizing the company publicly, it will not affect the mental health of the Apple itself, because the Apple does not have a mental health, okay? However, both of these things are being run like businesses and have massive fan bases. If you know Britney Spears, you know Apple, and if you know Apple, you also know Britney Spears. There's many fandoms and fan bases that border on what people like to call crazy and intense, and I have definitely contributed to that, like saying that these fandoms are crazy in the past. Think fandoms such as Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and even some K-pop groups like Blackpink or BTS. Studies suggest that people who rank high on celebrity worship scales also tend to display problematic psychosocial characteristics, including narcissism, addictive tendencies, and stalking. Those who are on the far end of the celebrity worship spectrum may also have poorer mental health and experience symptoms of depression, anxiety, and social dysfunction. For the vast majority of people, fandom is probably a good thing, Dr. Wan says. Still, it's important to recognize that there are potential qualities out there for people who get too wrapped up in it. So I found out that there's basically like 3 levels to the celebrity worship scale. The levels of the celebrity worship scale are: number 1, the entertainment social level. It's the lowest level of celebrity worship. It's comprised of people who are entertained by a celebrity and engage in social interaction, such as fan club participation based on their interest in that celebrity. Then there's number 2, the intense personal level of celebrity worship is made up of people who obsess about their favorite celebrity and become compulsive in their expressions of emotion related to that celebrity. So think when a celebrity may do something wrong, or something that they don't like, or are dating someone that they don't like, or something that they just simply don't agree with. This can cause very negative emotional reaction. And then there's 3, the borderline pathological level. The highest level of celebrity worship includes people who are unable to control their activities related to or fantasies about their favorite celebrity. Research has shown that about 3 to 5% of study participants fall into this level of celebrity worship. A lot of time this leads to stalking, severe boundary crossing. And I do want to note something very important, is that while celebrity worship has been widely studied, it's also been widely criticized. In particular, celebrity worship researchers have tended to use the term celebrity worshiper and fan interchangeably, even though celebrity worship has never been rigorously defined in the scholarly literature, meaning that not every fan is a celebrity worshiper. And this is important to note because the higher that you are on the scale, the more likely that you are to basically cross lines that are not meant to be crossed and invading privacy that is not meant to be invaded, and overall being a disrespectful fan. I like to think of the movie Ingrid Goes West. It's an amazing movie, but basically Aubrey Plaza's character is very obsessed with an Instagram personality, and she goes on to do ridiculous things to basically be her fake best friend. And that is not to say that my viewers are doing that. The vast majority of people are not doing that. However, I do think that it's important to talk about because I feel like a lot of actions by a lot of fandoms are kind of crossing that line and not really showing healthy behaviors towards people who they are fans of. Personally, for me, I feel like sometimes if I knew less about some of my favorite celebrities, maybe I would be happier and maintain being fans of them. I have this bad habit of sometimes becoming fans of certain celebrities and then learning everything about them and then like really disliking them afterwards because I'm like, I know way too fucking much and I don't want to know this anymore. But I've like limited myself a lot to like how much I allow myself to learn about a certain celebrity or artist or whatever. A, because I'm scared that I'll become obsessed, just kind of likely. B, find out something I don't want to know, which is also very likely, and C, I'll be intimidated by the fandom itself. And I think to a certain extent, that's why a lot of celebrities choose not to be very active on social media and kind of are playing this like elusive, cool girl persona. You don't have to be a girl to be a cool girl. On like the social media front, I think of like Emma Chamberlain and Claudia Sulewski, who have definitely become way more elusive and mysterious online and social media, who are once like so fully out there. And I think that mysteriousness and elusiveness has given them the ability to cross over from being a social media influencer to now what a lot of people consider a celebrity, because they are more quiet about their personal lives. And it also puts up a huge barrier to how people are able to perceive them, and therefore can't hate them as much. You can't be hated if people don't know anything about you anymore. Anyway, I do want to jump in about like the whole competitiveness and darker side to being a part of a fandom that I have experienced firsthand in my time as a FouseyTube stan, which is wild to say. I think I was like ages 11 to maybe like 13 where I was like a mega fan, and it felt like a sport. It was quite literally the who had more time on their hands Olympics. Who here has dedicated the most time to watching the most FouseyTube videos? Who here knows the most intimate personal details of his life? Who here has gained a follow from him on Twitter because you have spammed him so much? Who here has spent the most time on his live streams? And who here has the largest folder on their computer of the rare pictures of him? That was me. I was like, oh my god, here's my like little folder of pictures of him in college. Like, get a grip! But anyway, I was 13, alas. And I still see a lot of this today, especially like on Instagram of certain fan pages. Like, you know how your explore page shows you what you're exploring, whatever. My explore page is filled with Billie Eilish fan pages. And so sometimes I'll look at them and the comments will be like, I saw this photo first. No. I found this photo first. No. This person found this photo first. Give credits to this person for finding this paparazzi photo. Who interacts with Billie Eilish the most, huh? Who in their bio has like, Billie has liked 7 times? Who has bought more merch? Who has gone to more concerts? And I understand that a lot of times it is younger fans, because I was doing the same thing. But the scary thing is that sometimes it's not. And sometimes people don't grow out of it. And sometimes people think that this behavior is normal forever. And it still isn't healthy, even as like a 12-year-old, to be that obsessive. If I could tell like 11-year-old Nicole anything, I'd be like, don't be a FouseyTube fan, bitch. Like, go do the play or anything else. I remember he was on the Chicago radio station, and it was like, if you call this number, you might get a chance to talk with him live on the air, where thousands of people will be listening in their cars on their commute to work. And I remember I went to church that day, and they had some special day that like you could ask a saint for anything. I don't remember what the hell it was, but it was like, today's your lucky day, you can ask your saint for anything. And I was like, saint, I don't know, please let me have one more interaction with FouseyTube. And then I came home from church, and then I called the Chicago radio station like 10 times. It was definitely not 10 times, it was like 50 times. And then finally I got put on the air with FouseyTube, and I was like, the saints doing? And not me, you know, just obsessively calling like 50 times anyway. And I was like, I'm 12. I love you so much. I'm your biggest fan.
Let's go to Nicole joining us. Nicole, you're on the rise.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so Yusef, I am an OG Tubian. I tweeted you a couple days ago, and I'm like, only if Yusef would stop putting himself down and, you know, being down, I could be so happy. Yusef, I was crying, and I'm crying right now. Oh my god, you mean so much to me. And you don't...
Oh, you're such a sweetheart, and I think I saw your tweet when you said that, and it meant the world to me.
Because...
So the fact that you want to see me happy made me so happy, and I promise you guys are the best, and thank you.
And then he asked me to marry him.
Will you walk down the aisle with hey Nicole, if you will?
Oh my god.
Hey Nicole.
Yeah?
Opportunity arose. Did you walk down the aisle with me?
Oh my god, yes!
Anyway, insanely inappropriate, but are we surprised that older men's shtick for getting younger girls to be fans of him because they are the biggest fangirls and will absolutely give you a career, which I will get into in this video? Are we surprised that was his shtick? No. Anyway, that's the time that FouseyTube asked me to marry him. But there were bullies in the community. There were fucking hardcore bullies in the FouseyTube community. I remember to this day. And Mary, if you're fucking watching this, I didn't forget. You were a raging, you were so mean to me, or make fun of me and DM me awful things, and then like snicker and laugh with your friends. It was so evil and vile. Anyway, that shit affected me and my confidence. And I didn't even know this girl. She lived in Dearborn, Michigan, but she bullied the shit out of me online. How do you get bullied on Twitter.com at the age of 12? But there was a hierarchy of fans 100%. It was new fans who didn't know shit and OG fans who knew everything and had the crazy folders on their computer with crazy information. And then there was the obsessive fans who would like call his house or show up to wherever he worked. But those people were like admired. Those people were not seen as like creepy or over the top. It was like they are dedicated OG fans. That's family. And the issue is that sometimes people encourage that behavior, or sometimes the fandom doesn't even tell them that what they're doing is wrong. And like I said, most of this stuff does phase out with age, but it's definitely scary when it doesn't phase out in age, because there's still definitely people who are experiencing wild parasocial relationships as adults with celebrities. And now that fandoms are so much more easily accessible and chat rooms, ew, I feel so fucking old for saying chat rooms, Reddit forums, Twitter groups, whatever the hell, TikTok subgroups, it is so ridiculously easy to find your niche and your genre and your community, whatever you are a fan of. And because we just have more content than we've ever had in our entire lives of everything that we've ever been a fan of, it's really easy to slip into that parasocial relationshipness. Ugh. And the time has come. I want to talk about sexism in the fandoms, because would it be a Nikki Nasty video if I didn't blame something on men? No. First of all, we all know that women who are in fandoms are fangirls and are experiencing hysteria and are immature. However, men obsessed with sports teams are just being masculine, manly men, and are very much so to be respected because it is a very serious business. Must be taken very seriously, not to be fucked with, and it is not immature at all. When over 20,000 fans showed up outside of the Link in Philadelphia for the Taylor Swift concert on her Eras tour, that was seen as like a social threat, and other arenas made announcements to please not gather outside of the arenas for the safety of others, blah, blah, blah. However, when the Super Bowl is happening, especially in Philadelphia, oh, the Eagles are about to play? Oh, we gotta go grease the poles, because people are gonna climb them, but we're gonna just try and make it at least a little bit more difficult. It's like a funny, silly little thing like, haha, let's grease the poles. It's very interesting that men are totally allowed to be extreme fanboys. It's actually kind of weird if you're not like a big fanboy, especially of sports. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't watch sports? Like, what do you do then? But God forbid the moment that a woman is a fan of an artist. Oh, but also if she's a fan of sports, then she's definitely pretending. Or she's pretending because she wants to get with the guys that are on the field. And I bet she can't like name like 5 players or anything like that. But women going to more than one concert of a band, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But if you want to get season pass tickets for football, that's cool. That's really fucking cool. Anyway, my point is that women truly can't like anything. They're just legally not allowed to like a thing at all. Which brings me then to like the whole women don't have hobbies thing. I'm sure that we've all seen that video circling about like men being like, women don't have hobbies. Like, what fucking hobbies do women have?
How many girls do you know actually have hobbies?
This might be the most sexist thing I'll ever say, but do girls have hobbies? There's a select few, but it's rare.
Liking and watching sports for men is considered a hobby. I mean, you can do sports betting, you can be part of fantasy groups, which is like where you're basically just like playing pretend with what teams you think are gonna win and just like play around. Anyway. Oh my god, but if this woman has a Harry Styles fan page, she's fucking nuts. Concert going, liking bands is not considered a hobby for women. I mean, like the whole thing of like, oh, you like the band X, Y, and Z, name 5 of their songs, is literally a misogynistic rooted comment. It was mainly geared towards women wearing band shirts and men assuming that they don't know any of the music at all. Vulture says, and yet it is by definition a bit different from hobbies like cooking or learning an instrument in that fandom is in the service of someone else's creativity rather than one's own. However, I kind of have to argue about that because I really do feel like men enjoying sports and participating in sports culture is considered a hobby. And is that not in the service of someone else's creativity, or I guess in someone else's activity? Media coverage for female fans is solely to pretty much just make fun of them.
I love them. I don't care what anybody thinks. I love the Beatles for them, and I'll always love them.
There have been huge crowds of teenage girls outside complaining that they don't want to mob you, they just want to speak to you. What do you think about this? Do you want to talk to them? Have you tried to sneak into the hotel?
Yes, we were in the hotel.
However,
How far in did you get?
12th floor. Well, did the man go in that line?
I'm a strong believer, not even a believer, I just know this. I know this is a fact. Without female fans, we would have no media at all. If I didn't have the girlies by my side, I would not have a job at all. If we didn't have the girlies, we wouldn't have good movies. If we didn't have girlies, we wouldn't have good books. If we didn't have girlies, we wouldn't have the best musicians fucking out there. Fangirls, not a slur. Fangirls are career building people of artists. Fangirls are to be appreciated and not to be belittled. People bond over vilifying women because it's fun to hate things that other people hate and refer to it as shared experience rather than acknowledge it as not mob mentality. Women in fan bases often feel policed by these practices, which then encourage unrealistic expectations onto other women. Let's talk about the Beatles. I never thought I would do that on my channel. The 1960s saw the rise of Beatlemania, excitement expressed by young female fans of the Beatles. Beatlemania courted the idea of hysterical females by implying that these fans were nothing more than delirious, screaming kids. Some journalists at the time even described the phenomenon as mental disturbance or Liverpool lunacy that drives the immature, shall we say, ape. And the language choice of very indiscreetly suggested that these women were not of sound mind and sent the message that female music fans were not to be taken seriously. The reality, however, was that these young women were able to launch the career of the legendary band that real music fans, i.e. men, now wish to gatekeep. And I truly think that this is the origin of gatekeeping musicians and artists. Oh, you like that band? Name 5 songs. Or saying that bands are no longer good once they become mainstream. And why do they often become mainstream? Because of the girlies launching these bands' careers. And that is just a small taste of misogyny that I have seen while researching for this video. Some of the biggest fans I've ever seen my whole life are college sports fans. You wake up, you start drinking at 9 in the morning, paint your face, you pay for like the expensive jerseys, you have to pay for like the Uber there, you pay to tailgate like in the parking lot of the stadium, you pay to enter the game, you scream the name of your favorite teammates, you cry when they lose, you cry when you win, you go out, you celebrate some more. Even if you're not a college sports fan, let's just say you're a regular sports fan, you might punch a horse in the face. Maybe you'll climb grease poles. You'll spend thousands of dollars on tickets. You will literally shut city streets down. You will pick fights with complete strangers of the opposing team. You are a ride or die for your team. How is that any different from girls getting ready for a Harry Styles concert? Oh, I know. It's because most Harry Styles fans are not punching horses in the face or climbing grease poles or shutting a whole city down. I have been inside of homes of men, which is not often, that have whole rooms dedicated to sports teams. It's usually in the basement, and when you walk down there, it like feels like a whole ass fucking shrine, and you're like, wow, this whole basement is literally just dedicated to Penn State. Oh, you really love the Vikings. That's crazy. These are really ugly colors painted on your wall. Oh my god, you have a cutout of that guy. I don't know, they all look the same. And you have merch, thousands and thousands of dollars of merch, and you have to wear that specific one for game days, and you cannot wash it or else they will lose. God fucking forbid a girl has a poster of Jimin on her wall. Dr. Drew Ramsey, a Columbia professor of psychiatry and co-author of The Happiness Diet, believes that fan engagement tips into the danger area as it moves beyond idle interest. For example, he sees many patients whose marriages have been compromised by a partner's zeal for NFL Sunday, which demands hours of television watching each week. I believe in leisure, he says, but we've sort of swapped out something that is supposed to be pleasurable and leisurely and replaced it with an intense involvement. I can agree that a lot of times being in a fandom can be a distraction for whatever you are experiencing in your personal life. I'm not saying always, but I'm saying sometimes, and at least for myself, if I get ever heavily obsessed with something or really dive deep into a fandom, it's usually a distraction for something else that I don't really want to be dealing with at the time. When it comes to research about cult fandoms' implications on the human psyche, sports by far has the most documentation. A study that brought points about sports fandom psychological implications claims that forming of sports teams reflects the importance of the role of coalition behavior in societies. In other words, being a sports superfan is far deeper than about winning or losing. It's essentially about psychological safety. When one becomes a superfan of a sport, they are in some ways replacing elements of their identity with the sports team. The source continues by arguing, the reason to become a fan can be summarized under taxonomy economy of essential needs, becoming fans in order to satisfy them. The 3 core needs outlined by the source are as follows: validation, pleasure, and excitement. The purpose of cult fanship from a psychological standpoint is to fulfill one, if not all of these needs, most likely lacking from an individual. This explains why a lot of the world's biggest fans are teenagers. Teens are arguably the largest demographic in pursuit of constant validation, pleasure, and excitement. I'm 23 and I'm still constantly looking for validation, pleasure, and excitement. So while a lot of the times being in a fandom can be a really good distraction and be fulfilling some needs that you may feel are lacking, and a lot of times can be community building and very important and essential to people, there are potential dangers of cult fanship. We before talked about the celebrity admiration scale, and oftentimes people ranking highly on that scale have psychological issues pertaining to depression and anxiety, body image, social dysfunction, and interpersonal boundaries. The same study also found that stans may display narcissistic characteristics, stalking behavior, amongst a litany of other concerning behaviors. Addictive tendencies, criminality, and compulsive buying are among other negative characteristics cult fans find themselves developing. Now, I don't think the majority of stans have these issues at all. Just because you're a stan of a band, for example, or even of a sports team, does not mean that you're going to have addiction issues or that you are a narcissist necessarily. However, sometimes the very few that do take it too far are often the ones that ruin it for the rest of the fandom. And not only that, but ruin it for the artists. One of the most concerning behaviors exhibited by fans is the practice of doxing. This is where stans target social media users who've expressed negative opinions of their favorite celebrity and release sensitive information about that user to the public. Because of the anonymity of stan accounts, many feel that they can tweet freely without consequence. There's no consequence for your actions when a bulk of your online presence is attributed to an idea. And this not only will happen within the fandom to other fans, but it can also happen to the artists themselves. You can probably think of any major celebrity and they have had some sort of form of stalking in which they've had to had a restraining order because someone has continuously come to their house in the name of love because they're either really happy with something that they've done, like their artwork, or really angry about something that they've done, like being in a relationship. Whether it be a sports superfan or a fan of popular celebrity, the psychology behind cult fanship is really a reflection of what we need as humans. And I cannot emphasize enough that these few bad eggs, which is a lot of bad eggs because there's a lot of them out there, but they are not the majority, are kind of giving a bad name to the rest of fandoms, a lot of times, which are women. Fangirls are one step ahead of music journalists. They see every single interview, they watch every single performance, they go to the shows, they understand artists more than you can with just traditional research that journalists may do. As most journalists who ever hosted a fan Q&A will tell you, fans always have the best and most interesting questions. And a lot of artists are seeing this themselves, which brings me back to the point of a lot of people not taking fangirls seriously when in reality, they can sometimes do a journalist's job better than they can. Harry Styles, in his Rolling Stone cover back in August, rightly states, "We're so past that dumb, outdated narrative of these people are girls, so they don't know what they're talking about. They're the ones who know what they're talking about. They're the people who listen obsessively. They fucking own this shit. They're running it." He would know. However, being so involved as a fan and knowing the ins and outs of an artist and knowing every single interview and every single performance and every detail, the good will also include the ugly. The lines of when a fandom trails over to become unhealthy has just a blurry line. Defending an artist no matter what kind of harm they may cause, defending their problematic behavior, not caring for their fans, inciting violence, like at their shows, staying quiet about causes that they should speak more up about, doxing, following, stalking, harassing, invading privacy, sexualizing, infantilizing. Unfortunately, a lot of times people may not even realize when they kind of pass that territory of being a very supportive fan who knows so much to kind of treading this line where they're like, fuck, I got in too deep and I don't know how I got here. I think a lot of people who were once avid fans, especially when they were younger, such as me with FouseyTube and other people, look back and think to themselves that maybe they were more out of line than they even realized at the time. That's definitely the experience for me and some of my friends. As I've grown older and adopted more responsibilities and less time to dedicate being like a super fan of something or someone, that has definitely contributed to it. Also, becoming a YouTuber who has an insanely cool audience. I have also questioned some of my behaviors from when I was younger, when some of those same actions that I once did were being reflected onto me. A lot of times young fans who genuinely have good intent, but it is not really coming across the correct way. way and definitely crossing lines and boundaries. I didn't appreciate my location being given out on public YouTube videos if you recognize the background of where I was. I don't appreciate guessing what neighborhood I live in. I didn't like feeling like my privacy was violated. It was so violated that I went to fucking court for it. And there's been times when I have been sexualized or infantilized on the internet. Two very different things, but I hate both of them. And because of this, it's changed the way in which I interact with those who I am a fan of. Because once it was done to me, I was like, damn, this shit really fucking sucks. I don't ever want to make someone else feel this way. And unfortunately, I do think that sometimes there are people who are on a platform who do take advantage of their fans. I think that there's some instances where artists know that fans will blow things out of proportion and basically do the PR work for them or make fans worry unnecessarily on purpose. And I have a friend who works within TMZ, like inside of TMZ, not like a paparazzi, but my friend has told me there's so much more PR that goes on than we can even imagine. Everything is so calculated, and there's a reason why people in PR make so much money. It's definitely easy to ride that ego trip of, oh my god, everything that I put out, people will cling on to, and use that to your advantage. We often see this more with like social media stars because once again, sometimes celebrities like to be like more elusive online, you know? My mind immediately runs to the whole situation with Colleen Ballinger and Adam McIntyre, someone who took advantage of an underage fan, knowing that he was a massive fan, sent inappropriate messages to him, literally sent lingerie to him when he was like 14, asked him to do work for her, social media work on Twitter, turned on him, and then asked for others to also publicly turn on him and make his life a living hell. That is just a prime example of a social media star using their power for serious no good. Or like Kylie Jenner, for example, lying about clearly getting work done, but instead saying, it's just my lip kits, and then selling so many fucking lip kits because her fans are gonna believe that she's telling the truth. Ultimately, I don't think all of those examples are on the same level, but taking advantage of your audience, it's a business for a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of times the function of capitalism demands that creative artists must not just create, but sell in order to be successful. But I think a lot of times we don't take it as seriously when celebrities may open up about how their audience and their fan base may be negatively affecting them mentally. I think of Ariana Grande having to make a public video about her weight because a lot of people were speculating about her size and her weight and whether she has health issues rather than respecting her privacy. And you can clearly see, and I mean, she's talked about it, how that has negatively impacted her. I often talk about my love for the Strokes and Julian Casablancas on my channel. I've definitely thought more about my personal actions with celebrities or artists that I'm a fan of. Something that may seem like a fun sport for me, the sport being fangirling, how that may be detrimental to an artist. And I was lucky enough to talk to someone who knows Julian personally. Don't ask me about how I girl bossed so close to the sun, but I did. The person that I interviewed is a supporter of fandoms. They recognize that they themselves are a fan of things that they have interest in, and also recognize the intense community building that it does and how important it is to artists. They are not anti-fandoms by any means. But they also talked to me about seeing some of the darker sides of fandoms crossing the line. People thinking that they have access or insight into someone's life and privacy. Parasocial relationships are something that we've all taken part in, just on a varying scale. You may feel like you know your favorite YouTuber or TikToker or musician or actor, but truly, we really only know the parts of them that they choose to put out themselves, the parts that they choose to share with us. And a lot of people think that just having access to this information means that they have insight, when they truly don't at all. It doesn't help that fandoms begin with creating a feeling of de-individualization and anonymity. We as people love feeling like individuals and everything, but there's just something about being a part of a group who is there for like a greater meaning and something besides ourselves, to which a point we do love feeling de-individualized. It's a very, very freeing experience. And being a part of a fandom, you may feel like, well, I'm just like one fish in the crowd. I'm anonymous. And people love to ride that high on unfortunately, and take it to the extremes. Personally, I remember when I first started getting referred to in the third person in the comments on my videos, and it was definitely unsettling because it was like, hello, I'm right here. Hi, I'm reading this. But they only knew about the version that I chose to put out there of myself for that small blip of time. It's often assumed that the people that you talk about online wouldn't see what's being said about you, but that's actually not true at all. As if there's some sort of barrier from the everyday person and someone who decides to live their life in the spotlight. Newsflash, there is zero barrier. We are all using the same internet. And my source has also mentioned seeing the impacts of hateful and obsessive comments and how that can negatively impact the artist, in this case being Julian. Seeing comments about yourself that sexualize you, infantilize you in the masses every single day of every single thing that you create online, all in third person, can cause some serious depersonalization. It is true. Yes, adult rock star men are not immune to people crossing the line and making lewd comments about you on the internet. Everyone is very keen on being like a mental health advocate until it's like a mental health struggle that is outside of anxiety or depression. Because fuck you if you're facing the effects of putting yourself out there, because it's to be expected. It should not be normalized to sexualize or infantilize anyone who like literally is not consenting to it, especially out on the internet, just because they are a public figure. And it's even worse to think that, well, that person will never see it. Because like I said, my source quite literally was like, they see it all right. I'd be lying by saying, I never said I want to put Julian into a blender and drink him, because I have definitely said that. And to be honest, probably worse. Being on the spectrum of receiving extreme love or extreme hate can lead to really tough mental headspaces. And it's important to consider that we aren't really designed for either of those things, especially on an everyday basis on the internet, and especially people who are receiving it in large quantities, because we're experiencing pretty much the early days of the internet, and the effects of this are still unknown long term. Personally, I think that there should be more pressure on fandoms and more encouragement for the media to humanize celebrities. I think this would not be only beneficial, obviously, to celebrities, but to quite literally the fandoms themselves too. And I think this is an ethical responsibility. I've been reading tabloid magazines and gossip magazines from a very, very early age. Like, I haven't recently, but as a very young kid, I saw some awful, nasty front page articles talking about weight, talking about drug use, addiction, the most vile things about people's personal life, having absolutely no sense of humanity. And I think especially our generation has done a really good job of like nipping that in the bud and being like, we don't want to see that shit anymore, and that is not morally okay. It's still very, very far from where it should be, and it's nowhere near perfect, but I do think the way that we report on others has become a bit more ethical and human in some ways, and in some ways it's definitely lacking. But I think that the pressure that was given to tabloid magazines and journalists and television, it helped encourage a more kind and humane approach to celebrity journalism. I think ultimately it would help the mental health of a lot of people within fandoms as well. Being able to recognize that the person that you are a fan of is a human and maybe not idolize them as much, definitely help with mental health. Maybe lack of comparison, lack of idolization, also humanizing people more and realizing these are real people whose boundaries you would be invading. And I think a lot of times it's like journalism and the way that we report on celebrities is very much so normalizing invading the privacy and overstepping boundaries, and really like, in a way, stalking light, like L-I-T-E. It's like normalizing it and being like, this is okay, and then further encouraging the audience to be like, this is okay subconsciously. And so I see a lot of room for improvement for that, not only for the benefit of the people in the spotlight, but also the fans. Ultimately, I think that fandoms are a beautiful community a lot of times, and definitely should be taken seriously, considering they are the foundation and building blocks for so many people's careers. They're essential to the success of so many artists, and fangirls literally run this shit and should be respected. However, I think that there's still some issues within fandoms that need to be addressed. The misogyny and sexism within these communities, the policing of what makes someone a fan, and the boundaries that many fans are crossing in the name of love. I don't think every person who is in a fandom is mentally ill and experiencing hysteria, okay? And I don't think all sports fans are destructive assholes. I do think that all of us can agree on this, that taking anything to an extreme can be unhealthy. And even that means love. I'm putting that that in air quotes because I don't really necessarily think it's always love anyway. I think a lot of times it's obsessive, it's boundary crossing, it's inhumane, ill-intended, and controlling. And that's something that needs to be fixed within each community, starting with how we interact with the fandoms that we associate ourselves with and how we treat others as human. Boom, mic drop, but I'm not dropping this mic because it's literally like it's a lot of money. It's so crazy how I can just sit my ass down for like 7 hours and write an essay about fangirls. Be like, I love this shit, but God forbid I had to write an essay in school. I hope that you guys like this video because I had a lot of fun making it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave this video a like because it helps me out so much. Also, leave a comment if you're in any fandoms, your experience within fandoms, because I want to hear about it. Make sure that you subscribe if you want to be nasty, if not you're disgusting. Also, make sure you have your bell notifications on so you know every single time I post, or else you are gross. If you want to follow me on my other social media, Instagram, Twitter, Depop, Spotify, it's just at Nicole Rafiee. And if you want to follow me on my TikTok, it's at Nikki Nasty. Anyway, Julian Casablancas, sorry that I said that one time that I want to put you in a blender and drink you. I deeply apologize. Bye!